A high-stakes weekend is about to begin for Tom Mulcair as delegates gather for the NDP's annual convention. Mulcair faces his first leadership vote since the party fell to third place in 2015. He says he can hold on to the leadership if he gets at least 70% support. Joining us from Edmonton is former NDP strategist Sally Housser. Big weekend ahead. Thank you for joining us this morning.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Tom Mulcair needs 50% plus one to stay on. He wants 70%. Why 70%? What's the psychological kind of leadership behind 70%?
Well, the Constitution is clear. What actually triggers a leadership race, a formal leadership race, as opposed to the review we're seeing this weekend, is that 50 plus one, or sorry, just below 50. But when you're getting much below 70, basically the closer you get to 50, it's a party divided, and it makes it very difficult to rebuild and move forward from the electoral loss we saw in the recent federal election. So to have that mandate that's clear from the party to move forward, basically the closer you get to 50, the lower you get of that split, it's much harder to bring the party together and move forward together.
You know, it's interesting because, of course, Mulcair has indicated he would like to stay on, would like to have the support of the party, obviously. That's why he's still ready, or still leader. The NDP youth vote, so it had a vote last night, and they voted in favor of not voting him out. And even though there was I guess an executive letter saying we need generational change. How important or significant is it that even though the vote was split, they're saying, hey, let's just vote our own way?
Well, I think you'll find all sorts of groups within the party. You've had certain unions expressing supports, others not, or union leadership not. This youth vote. This is, I think, the cut and thrust of a New Democrat Convention. You have similar breaks every convention. Obviously, leadership is a big deal. In terms of the scope of how this will affect the race itself, I don't know that that kind of youth vote will swing things one way or the other. But I do think in terms of renewal of the party, in terms of thinking about the future and the growth of the party, you don't want to discount what the youth wing, the young NDP is telling you, because obviously, and it sounds trite to say, but it's absolutely true, that is in so many ways the future. That's the next generation of New Democrats, who will be working these elections, who will be knocking the doors. So I think, you ignore that at your peril, and you really want to be listening to the concerns that they're sharing.
Do you think that the discussion that bubbles up every time there's a leadership, vote in the NDP is whether fundamentally the party should move right, left, or is that kind of an old argument now?
I think that's absolutely correct. I think the way we talk about left, right, center is it sounds like it's from the 1950s, 60s in many ways. I think it's not particularly relevant in the way we need to talk about modernizing the party and moving forward. That's certainly, since I've been involved in the NDP, is always kind of that shift to the people said it about Jack Layton, is that he's moving the party too far to the center, too far to the right. It's something I've always heard. And I don't necessarily think, I hear this from older, people from of every age within the party, that is not something that is particularly helpful. I think what we want to look at is what is progressive and what is status quo. How do we modernize? How do we move forward? And I think the certain absolutism that goes with the "are you left wing enough? Are you center?" is not particularly helpful for getting people, particularly people that aren't party members, that aren't partisans, engaged and involved in the electoral process.
Well, it'll be an interesting weekend ahead. Sally, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.